Welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in this afternoon at what is a busy time of day. Farrow Jamieson have been successfully running career webinars, and this is the first in our series, Pathways to the Healthcare Industry. Joining me this afternoon is Mike Siddells, the National Sales Manager at Device Technologies. Good afternoon, Mike.
Hi.
So here we've just got a few housekeeping things to look at. You should have the view in front of you currently, and we want you to ask questions. So down in the bottom area, if you type in your questions, we'll try to get through as many of those as we possibly can. Mike is our guest speaker today. So as I mentioned earlier, he's the National Sales Manager at Device Technologies, and he's here to share his experiences with us. Now, Mike, you completed a Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry. What led you to choose this field?
I suppose in summary, combination of interest and aptitude. I had a pretty good bio teacher at college, which really helped. I had a terrible physics teacher, so hence I did biosciences and not physics. But it was fundamentally interesting to me, and I was good at it.
Yeah.
So, which is the funny way when you do your career aptitude things, they say you should do what you're good at, that you enjoy, and I kind of fell into that without really realising.
Great. And what learnings did you take from that degree, do you think?
I think just personally, I like technology. I like science and information. I like the health area, the biology area. I didn't really, to be honest, I got halfway through my last year and wondered what I was going to do with it.
Yeah.
And it was either the dairy industry or the healthcare industry. So I ended up going to the healthcare industry in the hospital. I don't know if that's the classic way to do it, whether you should look at the market when you start your degree, but that's
the way you did it would for you.
I did what I enjoyed, and then I tried to figure out how I could leverage it.
Okay. Okay. So tell me a little bit about the first job that you had when you left, when you graduated.
Yep. So I was a medical laboratory technologist in the virus laboratory at Auckland Hospital. It was an interesting time in many ways because it was just as the HIV epidemic was really sort of hitting the press, and that sort of middle to late 80s was kind of interesting insofar as we used to have to do talks to our peers as part of our course, and I used to choose the kind of really radical, disgusting viruses. And two of the talks I remember doing were, one was on Ebola and one was on CJD, both of which sort of were in the news within 5 years of. So I went from the textbook to the real world.
Excellent, excellent. And then your next step, so you went to the UK.
Yeah.
So,
well, that was, to travel like most young Australasians, and it was a choice between getting £7 an hour working in a lab as a locum or £3 an hour pulling pints in the pubs around London. So I was there to travel, so £7 was going to get me there quicker than £3.
Than £3, Okay. And what differences did you find between working in the UK versus New Zealand?
Probably just more variety, I think. The one thing was they were really struggling. They were really struggling for staff. The number of full-time jobs I got offered because they couldn't recruit for. I mean, it was one of those areas where they love Australasians because we just got them there and knuckled down and did the work, and then left 6 months later and came back.
Exactly. Okay.
And the work was actually pretty easy to get through agencies.
Yeah. Okay. And when you were returning to New Zealand, did you contemplate coming back into the laboratory, or?
No, I had to be honest. For the 2.5 years that I was overseas, I knew that I didn't want to keep doing lab work because it was probably a bit repetitive for me. I didn't want to. The classic thing was to leave the lab and then sell diagnostic equipment, and I didn't really want to go back and sell to my old colleagues. So I wanted actually a change, but something that I could somehow leverage my background into. Returned to New Zealand in 1991 in the middle of the big recession. I can't remember which one it was. But it was, I think it was 11-12% unemployment.
Wow.
Couldn't even get a pub job in the middle of winter. So the period of unemployment, so I guess one lesson is never be too proud to go on the dole, because, you know, you might need to.
Okay.
Went for a whole lot of GP repping jobs. Missed all of them, thank God. No disrespect to GP reps. And then someone gave me a chance in medical devices at Baxter Healthcare.
Okay. And what skills do you think that you brought to that sales role from your laboratory background?
I think the ability to learn was a big one, and the ability to actually impart or relay sort of technical information. I think that's one of the things that, I mean, a science background, if you have any people skills, you should be able to do that, and that's something that you can parlay into a medical sales role. The things I needed to learn were the sales process, and I remember doing the 7 steps of the sales process, and in my first sales calls I'd be sort of sweating, wondering whether we were up to stage 3 or stage 4. And then I realized that fundamentally it's about having a natural conversation with someone that you're trying to form a relationship with, and do it naturally and put your slant on it. That's what I would think the biggest thing I've learned in sales is, like, be yourself, get the information across, but be natural. Be natural,
yeah. Okay. So you joined Device Technologies in 2006.
Yep.
How has your career evolved over time up until the present day?
Similarly to my time at Baxter, every couple of years the job changes, and not in a bad way, but it develops. We'll get new products on. They might sort of not sit nicely and neatly in any particular existing part of the business, so quite often they'll end up giving it to me, because I think I've proved myself to be a reasonably safe pair of hands and quite adaptable. The one thing I can say about the medical industry is that, especially in commercial side of things, is there's a lot of change, and probably always has been. Corporates are selling divisions, they're buying other companies, distributors are taking on new agencies, so I think you do have to be adaptable. You can't be precious about, you know, what my role to stay like it is forevermore, because it's probably not going to. So, you know, management wants to see adaptability and people who can knuckle it down and get the job done.
So what does a typical day look like for you?
You start off with a plan of what you want to achieve, and then by mid-morning that's pretty much history, depending on what phone calls you get. It's a combination of proactivity and reactivity. A lot of stuff can disrupt your day. I mean, I have a team of 6 or 7 reps. Sometimes they call, I need to respond to that call, so I need to forget what I'm doing. Customers can call, so you need to forget what you're doing and prioritize that. There's quite a lot of fires to fight. Sometimes part of my role is taking the heat off the reps. Sometimes you've got to take the punches from the customer so they don't have to. So you have to be the bad guy so they can be the good guy. Sometimes you have to wade in to make something happen quicker than it would otherwise happen as the process you know, of your company works. Sometimes you have to focus your reps, like basic, hey, budget, so they don't get drawn off chasing $200 sales and missing the $200,000 bits of. So I guess I see myself as the overall having overall responsibility for the commercial or the sales side of things. So if we hit target, I'll take, you know, a large chunk of the responsibility, and if we miss target, then it's at my doorstep as well.
Okay. So you've obviously hired, you know, a number of people over the years. What do you think are the ideal characteristics for somebody that's going to be successful in sales? What are you looking for?
Like generally? I would say my hit list for ideal characteristics would be drive.
Yeah.
Like an internal drive. That should come from within. Planning skills, because there's for us, for instance, there's 70 surgical hospitals that we would call our customers.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out how you're going to develop a relationship with each of them and see them on a regular basis. In order to, people buy up, people have a relationship with, which is based on trust. So how many times do you have to see them every year to build that level of trust?
And maintain it.
So planning skills in terms of running a territory, relationship skills is quite a big one for us. At the end of the day, most of what we sell you can get from someone else. So it's the rep and the relationship and their brand and how they represent our brand. That is probably the major differentiator. So we try to hire people that are likable and competent.
Okay.
Resilience is a big one. It's a very frustrating space to be in at times, and more so than it used to be, because it can take so long to get decisions made. Okay. That would be a handful of core ones, I'd say.
Okay. And without sort of naming names, I mean, who would you rate as your most successful hires?
It's generally the younger folk who've come in quite green, and like you see the spark. They've got the personality, they've got the ability to build relationships, but they don't have the tech skills.
Yeah.
So there's a belief that I have, which is your higher attitude teach skills.
Yeah.
So you can't teach people the attitude. So that's kind of how we do it. So that would be the real successes. We've had particular success with people coming out of the fitness industry, I think, just because they're really energetic and motivated.
Yeah.
And they have to run a range of different personalities as personal trainers. The failures, I guess there's two categories they fall into. I'd say people with a lot of experience who just don't take direction well because they think they know everything and they don't know being told what to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are the ones that really stick in my mind. And the other failures are with new people who are very inexperienced, and that's more a failure of our systems, is a failure to support them in the first 3 months.
Okay.
So we're so busy doing our thing day to day, because one thing I would say to you guys out there is that you will definitely, if you're new to sales, you will definitely have a wobble probably in month 2 to month 3. So your first month will be product training and learning about your new company. Your second month you'll probably be nursemaided by your sales manager, and then in your second to third month you'll be starting to make your calls on your own, and you'll start to get rejection.
Yeah. And
people won't want to take your calls, they won't want to see you, and it's hard not to take it personally, but it is an absolute reality.
Yeah.
And if your manager or your company cannot support you through that, you're likely to hate your job and look for something else.
Look for something else.
But that's actually a failure of the company if they can't nurse you through that.
Okay, through those initial stages. Okay. So looking at the industry sort of overall, what do you think, how does it compare with sort of 2014? How does it compare with the early 90s?
It's more complicated now, which actually calls for a lot more street smarts and strategic thinking. It's slower to get a decision made because there's more regional or hospital group purchasing in both public and private.
Yeah. So
Southern Cross is acting like a group now, for instance, rather than a collection of separate hospitals.
Okay.
Procurement departments have a lot more say in things.
Yeah.
And if the hospital is, deeply in the red, like some of them are, or the DHBs, then really they do not want to see any new technology, even really if it looks like it's going to save money. they just try to shut the gate on it. So that can be really frustrating for the rep when the clinician really is interested in it and they want it. So another thing that's changed is the clinicians don't have as much power as they used to. Back in the day, you used to be able to see the surgeon if he wanted it, he got it. But
not anymore.
Those days, I've had CEOs of hospitals say that the days of surgeons getting the shiny new toys are over. Which is pretty blunt, but but that's the way of it, and they're prepared to stand up to their surgeons. So, so I would say, I mentioned resilience before. That's why resilience is a really big thing, because you're going to find a lot of adversity. You could have ticked every box and still not get the deal. It could just go into, could the handbrake should just come on, and it might just, it's probably not dead, but it's certainly in cryo sleep for an indeterminate period. So, and then the strategic thinking is trying to figure out, if everyone says they want it but it's not happening, what's happening behind the scenes? Is there someone you've missed out? There's some political thing that you're not aware of. So I'd say just being thick-skinned and tough, not taking it personally, being resilient, refocusing elsewhere, and being strategic about the way you approach it.
Yeah, okay. So what advice would you give to people wanting to join the industry?
Wanting to join, so no experience. I would say you need to clearly demonstrate. So when I'm looking at someone's CV, you've got a bunch of them. So you want to stand out. You want to differentiate yourself. You've got to get to first base. You've got to get to the interview stage. I think the old classic sort of thinking is, if you can get to the interview stage, the person hiring has probably decided you could do the job based on what is in your CV. And they're trying to suss out whether you're smart enough or can fit in with the company. So you've got to get to first base. If I had $1 for everyone who said I've always wanted to get into the medical industry, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be on my boat in the harbour. So if you want to get into the medical industry, you've got to prove and show some sort of reason why.
Okay.
You've got to not just claim ambition or drive. You've got to show that you actually practice it in your daily life.
Okay.
And so you've got to, I guess what I'm really saying is, you've got to give some evidence and not just make claims. Because if I'm reading your CV, I'll be basically visualizing you based on what I've read in that role. And if I can't visualize you, then you're not going to go any further.
So your CV is a real sales document.
Totally.
That's got to sell you.
And you should treat it as a sales document. So if you want to become a medical sales rep, I mean, not everyone's born to it. I wasn't. I was working in a lab. I was an insular white coat wearer. But I will say, I got off my rear end and made the change happen as a challenge to myself. There's lots of things that people have done which prove that they can get themselves out of bed in the morning and stretch themselves, and I guess I want to be impressed by something that I read.
And that first few minutes is quite crucial, isn't it? And once they get to the interview stage.
I don't think it is. I want to learn about the person. My interviews tend to be quite long. They're probably hour and a half. I want the person to feel at ease. We don't make them feel uncomfortable to see how they go under duress. If I want to learn about the person, I want them to be comfortable and feel that they can open up. So it's like, what am I really buying here?
Okay.
I want to see as much as possible of what I'm buying.
Okay. And what about?
It's not the way everyone does it. Some people like to make people sweat and see how they go.
They do.
But it's an unrealistic environment.
Is
what I would say. So if you just pound people, it's like, what can you learn from a school kid at exam time? Well, some people don't do exams well. However, that being said, an interview is a sales process, and if you can't sell yourself during the interview process, you're not giving the company that much faith that you're going to be able to rise to the challenge.
Exactly. Okay. And what about people wanting to get back into the industry, people that have already got experience?
Prove that you've still got the energy, I would say,
Yeah.
would be the biggest thing. Our personal experience is that we've got a lot of young blood coming through, and they undoubtedly have the energy. We're just trying to mould them. So people wanting to come back in the industry, that's what you're up against.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think it relates to a question we've got up there. I think one of the questions we've got that's come through is they're talking about job security.
Pretty good. Pretty good. I would say for our company, you've got to be really hopeless to get the sack.
Yeah.
Or you've got to really not get on with people. The caveat to that is that with the movement happening in the industry, so if a distributor loses a major agency that you're the representative for, that could impact your job stability. If the division you're working for at corporate gets sold, that could impact your job security, or if your company gets sold. But I would say, generally speaking, it's fairly stable.
Okay.
It's fairly stable. You don't have like the massive downsizing. I think it's with corporates, with multinationals, you're a bit more at risk of like a global headcount freeze or reduction. In my experience.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then somebody else has asked about sort of transitioning between pharmaceutical sales to devices. I mean, do you?
Yeah, there's two schools of thought. Probably yin and yang of one school of thought, maybe. There is general appreciation in the device world that pharmaceutical reps will be very well trained and very well organised in terms of how to run a territory, and that's been my experience. The fear factor on hiring a pharmaceutical rep will be how much support they'll need, because rightly or wrongly, the belief in the device world is that it's a very scripted process. I don't know if that's right or wrong. I've never worked in it, but that's what I hear. And I would say the device world is not very good at nursemaiding or hand-holding. We're a bit sink and swim. And that's not necessarily a good thing. However, there is a really strong culture, and it's not just our company. There's a really strong culture of taking responsibility for your own learning. And since the rise of Google, there's really no excuse to actually not just hit the computer and find out something instead of expecting it to be delivered to you.
Okay.
Probably the biggest negative about moving from pharmaceutical sales to medical is there's a hell of a lot of people wanting to do it at the moment. So it's going to be hard to stand out. So my advice would be to try and show something above and beyond your pharmaceutical sale that is going to make you attractive to a med device. You know, outside interests or whatever else you can bring to the party.
Okay. And what are the issues? I mean, we've sort of covered some of them, but some of the issues facing the device industry at the moment, and how are you sort of responding to the market?
One of the big ones is Pharmac are going to be responsible for medical devices, I think, in 2017. They have caused quite a rationalisation of pharmaceutical suppliers because of the move to generics and trying to reduce the government's drug spend. There's a lot of fear in the device industry about what impact Pharmac's going to have, although I think it's becoming clear. My advice to anyone looking to get into medical devices is to get on Google. There's quite a lot of transparency around what Pharmac are doing at the moment. So underneath Pharmac you have Health Alliance, which is a procurement organisation which sprung out of Auckland. So it was basically doing procurement activities for Auckland, counties Manukau and Waitemata, and that has now gone national. So basically Pharmac are going to pick a handful of key projects and going to run them nationally,
Mm-hmm.
and everything that Pharmac doesn't want will be done by Health Alliance.
Okay.
So if you come into an interview knowing some of that stuff, that will be brownie points.
Yeah.
So that's still panning out. I think Pharmac say that they understand that devices and pharmaceuticals are different. There's about, I don't know, 400 or 800 drugs that they're responsible for and 250,000 devices.
Yeah.
So they can't use the same models, I think.
Yeah.
So that's one big challenge. The threat of regulatory combination with the Australians seems to have died away. That was a big threat to New Zealand because New Zealand's quite an open market.
Mm-hmm.
If something is CE marked, then the hospital's basically policed to that level. So if you've got CE marked, you can pretty much play the game. We don't need TGA.
Okay.
And it's just the little trans-Tasman things that
yeah.
the Kiwis think the Australians are overly bureaucratic, and they think we're the Wild West and there's bodies bleeding in the gutter.
Yeah.
But I don't think there is.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent.
In terms of other issues facing medical, I would say industry consolidation.
Okay.
To be honest, it's a point of record about Medtronic buying Covidien.
Yes. Yeah.
Covidien is a huge company, so for them to be bought actually sent quite a few tremors through the industry in terms of what does this mean. So I think you'll actually continue to see corporate mergers happen as a response potentially, and distributors, agencies come and go. You know, I've been in distribution for 10 years, and just, it's going to be painful when big agencies go.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't mean, you know, the death of the company, but distributors have the ability to go shopping for new agencies.
Exactly.
Whereas if corporates sell divisions or whatever, you're at the mercy of the corporate pipeline. That's just my pitch for the, distributor world.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I'm not sure I don't think there's any more questions at this stage. So it's been great having you here today. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm sure that everybody's, you know, learned a lot. The webinar is going to be uploaded onto our website tomorrow, so for those of you who wish to review it, it should be up there then. And then in the new year, we will be running the next webinar in our Pathways to Healthcare series. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks and good luck out there, guys.
Thank you, Mike.